Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Ito po si Virgilio Santillan Santoyo. Babasahin ko po ngayon ang introduction sa isang aklat na sinulat ng iyong abang lingkod na naglalahad ng evolusyon ng tao mula sa pagiging nilalang patungo sa pagiging kamanlalalang. Introduction. The poverty-drowned masses of our already conflict-ridden planet are currently facing a grave threat, unheard of in the history of human existence. A man-made economic chaos and threat of a nuclear war on a worldwide scale, which have long been planned in the minds of a few individuals in their desire, all for their selfish ends, to compel the peoples and nations of the world that there is an urgent need to establish an inhumanely controlled world government that will just aggravate the status quo, which is characterized by mass poverty amidst affluence of the very few elite class. These few unenlightened individuals are unaware that they are merely serving as instruments for the fulfillment of a particular stage, that is stage 8, of a greater plan, namely the divine plan, whose ultimate goal is to end wars once and for all, and annihilate poverty and hunger for all the inhabitants of the world through the universal divine government at stage 9 of the divine plan. The whole world is in a state of conflict, which manifests as wars between and within nations, rebellion, terrorism, etc., and poverty. Every man is struggling against all other men as he craves for more for himself. In this world where the law of selfishness overpowers the law of love, despite the proliferation of countless religious sects that preach love and life and unity and peace, that should have been a very strong foundation upon which could have been built a prosperous world for all mankind. But the expected outcome proved to be the opposite. And this is because those who preach love and life, even eternal life, unity and peace, cannot among themselves practice what they preach. They all believe in God, who is the source of love and life, but this belief is overshadowed by their belief that their religion or denomination is the true religion or denomination, that they are right and all the others are wrong, that they are the only one who preach the truth, and all that do not belong to them preach lies, that salvation can only be obtained exclusively through them, that if one is baptized under their denominational banner, then he is saved. A state of what can be labeled as religious competition to its maximum level. In the light of that above scenario, should they not pause and contemplate for a while to see and accept the fact that their religious differences that arise from their different belief systems, which they respectively uphold and defend tenaciously, are just like the temporary scaffoldings that in due time should be dismantled once the real edifice, shall have been completely finished. So that whether we belong to the only one true religion, quote unquote, or to the many false ones, it does not matter anymore at this point in time when mankind is on the verge of a great evolutionary leap over and above the presently existing differences in religious beliefs towards an all-inclusive supra-religious movement that may be referred to as inter-religious anti-poverty movement for yell of humanity against war and hunger, with the acronym IMYHWH, that will welcome the participation and commitment of the different religions of the world. The innumerable Christian denominations are still blind to the fact that their tenacious adherence to their respective belief systems against the belief systems of each and all other Christian denominations is tantamount to declaring to the whole world that they are, one and all, not disciples of Christ, because each of them are just equally not obeying the command of Christ to love one another, which is written about in John chapter 13, verse 34, which says, "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another, even as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this all men will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." Quote unquote. If the different so-called Christian denominations are not willing to love those who belong to the other Christian denominations, how much more would it be more difficult for them to love those who belong to the other world religions, such as Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, Taoists, etc., and those who belong to the category of atheists and those whom they consider enemies of Christianity? That is, how much more would it be difficult for them to obey Christ's command to love even your enemies, as it is written in Matthew chapter 5, verse 44 up to verse 45. And I quote, "But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you, that ye may be the children of your Father which is in heaven, for he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust." Quote unquote. But just as the scaffoldings are useful and indispensable and necessary for the building of the high-rise edifice, the conflicting Christian denominational groupings in this age of religious diversity are just as necessary in conceiving, nurturing, and finally giving birth to the age of universal spiritual unity. For without these present differences, conflicts, and antagonisms, where can the ability to love even enemies be practiced and tested? The same could be said on the higher level of religious diversity, that is, between the world religions, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Judaism, Taoism, Confucianism, Shintoism, and many others. Their differences and conflicts and animosity are all useful and indispensable and necessary as the scaffoldings are to the high-rise edifice in conceiving, nurturing, and finally giving birth to the age of universal spiritual unity, wherein mankind as a whole becomes enlightened and liberated from the lie of separateness and enlightened into the truth that man is humanity, that man as humanity, as one unified whole, is himself the universal mind, which in Christianity is called the Christ mind, which is the abode and source of love, whose essence is awareness of universal oneness, or the perfect man, which perfection can only be attained by mankind as one unified whole, and only as one unified whole when all men come to the unity of the faith which is founded on love. And unity or oneness that leads to peace, even world peace. Even world peace.